All right. We
There
are
we go.
live with the Chip Quigley, a legend. This is one of our first legends on the show.
Oh, right.
Um,
I'm honored.
while you're technically on School of Fish, the surprise for today's show will be a swap out of podcast names. We
Oh,
are This is a one-time event here, folks.
that's right,
Here
ladies
comes
and
the
gentlemen.
release.
Well done. Well done, Fish. Well done, Fish. I love
Now,
this.
I know that sequencing or transition was not world class,
It was
but
well done, though. I'm impressed. I'm
all
impressed with
right.
you.
For
Yeah.
those that
Thank
don't
you.
know,
Thank you
Chip
for
and
the
I go
effort.
back. We'll talk about how we know each other, but one of our running jokes has been that we should have a podcast called Fish and Chip. I couldn't find the perfect fish and chip, so this is a
This is pretty good.
variation.
This
But
is pretty
welcome
good.
to the first ever Fish and Chips,
Ah,
which hopefully
welcome,
one day will
everyone.
be Fish and Chip. Chip
Well,
Quigley,
oh,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you very much. I love the effort you made, bro. That's great. That is primo. Primo. And I actually like a little salt. The vinegar works, but I love a little salt and vinegar on my chips also.
Yes, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. So I could not do justice to you telling your story about where you're from, what you've done through the years. If we could start there, that would be
All right.
that'd be
All right. Just the encapsulated version. I've born and bred New Yorker and born on Lower East Side and grew up here, went to, school here and child of the 60s. So I dropped out of college and traveled around. As I've told you before, I was lucky enough to be in that time of the late 70s where you know, being an entrepreneur in the music business was something that you could kind of access, throw your own shows and clubs, stuff like that, and identified the punk business and punk music of the late 70s as a genre that people, and really I was a fan, but not, I had, Led Zeppelin and The Who were more those types, Eric Clapton and that kind of music that came out of the early 70s and late 60s. But I identified this energy, great movement, and that's kind of how I began in the music business, promoting the Exploited, the Angelic Upstarts, these really classic punk bands from England, because I figured out how to bring them. And there's always, to me in business, what differentiates you from the next guy doing whatever you're going to do. And that was, I was able to get the English punk bands that everyone were fans of in America to come to America, put them in a van, have them tour. And then after doing that for a number of years, Ron Delsner, who was, the promoter in New York at the time and the impresario, came to me, and I was doing lots of shows, and he needed somebody to run production. He had one guy working for him, and I started to work for Ron Delsner back in 1980. And that began my real career in the big concert business and, on the big stage, Madison Square Garden and all those things. But what I learned was sound, lights, stages, production, customer service, how to take care of talent, all of the stuff that really mattered in the 80s was, it's not like now. It's, two Van Halens, three Tina Turners. Here comes Eric Clapton for 4 nights. Then you're at the Beacon Theater doing Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Then you're doing the Allman Brothers. Then you're out there doing Tom Petty. Then we got the Jones Beach Theater. And then, you're all summer. We had, I see how many shows are out there now. There was superstars, lots of them that could sell lots of tickets. And and then it was the resurgence of the older bands. So learned a lot about really from.
And let's just stop there because that's a lot to digest
Learned
in
a
a
lot.
good way.
Yeah.
In terms of, first of all, when you were a kid, let's say, pre-college years, were you always a fan of music?
I think the turning point, the 63, 64, the Beatles, the Dave Clark 5, yes, very much so. And I had not that everybody in my family, anybody was like some outstanding musician, but music was a part of Sunday at my grandmother's, playing the piano, or my aunts. So yes. But I was lucky enough to be like, AM radio, Dave Clark 5, the Kinks, And the Beatles, of course, and then the Rolling Stones.
And then to ultimately take a passion and enter it from a business standpoint. What were like the skill sets from the business side that could translate from either your upbringing, what you learned in your 20s or 30s, to be successul in the music business?
I think in the beginning it really became, I learned how to be responsive. First, I think I had a great idea to go when I first was doing my own thing, that if I can bring this talent to America, nobody else can, and then I can promote shows. So there was a risk factor there. But I had to be responsible. I had to get immigration papers. I had to do all of the business side of this. I also had to be charismatic enough to go over and, I was a guy with long hair, and I'm convincing punk rockers on King's Road in London to come to America. And then I'm going to put you in a van and you're going to play 20 shows. So that also later on in life, I think in the music business was a great skill, because when I went to work for Ron, how much a show cost, what you were paying talent, how much it cost for sound and lights, all of that stuff mattered as much as, yes, it was different. I mean, it's still the same, but you really took care of the talent, right? You wanted to build those relationships because you wanted them to come back when they were playing the Beacon Theater. You wanted them to come back when they played the Garden. So I learned about building relationships too. But I also learned relationships with the people that work with and for you was most important. I learned the most important guy on the job was the Teamster, right? He unloaded your trucks in the morning. If he didn't unload your trucks, you didn't have a show. So, I mean, I about treating people. But so those were the skill sets, I have to say. I was able to carry forward, right? And I think we were, your generation benefited from it. I was part of the generation where first it was the music, right? Then it was kind of the extravaganza of the shows. And then everyone says after the Stones did the Jordache jeans sponsorship on one of their shows, then it became okay to have brands be part of bands and music and festivals and whatnot. So right. I think we also
and you touched on how you had to kind of go out of your way proactively to treat the talent and court them and 100%. Kind of build the trust. How has that evolved from where talent was expectation wise in the 60s, 70s, even 80s to where it is today?
I think, and I'm never one to, like, I've been, I think, lucky enough to evolve through all of the different genres of talent. And that's one thing. Ron Delsner taught me how to take care of talent and audience, right? So by that, I mean, back then it was, if you came to the Jones Beach Theater, there was jet skis backstage. You had amazing catering. It was like a great summer stop. You wanted to play the theater. First year we did the theater, we had water between the stage and the audience. We filled it in the second year. But the point is, in 1983, when Ron started it, he convinced Eric Clapton to do those shows. I learned that sometimes that's what it takes. Fast forward to now, I think it's very much the same thing. People want to go, oh, it's, Live Nation and AEG and it's corporate. No, it's still the relationships between the individuals. It's still, yes, it's the money, right? But it's all, and it's what you can offer, because the larger companies have multiple venues and, can offer a whole tour, but that doesn't help the band that's building up. I did the first show I worked on with Ron, with U2, was in 2000 seater on 14th Street. Then we did Madison Square Garden. Then we did bigger and bigger. I can cite a million of those things. I think today it's the same thing. In fact, if anything, I feel in the hip hop market and in today's music, right? Because there's a lot of music, right? There's pop music, but there's everything else. I think relationships really matter. And certainly there's, the machine where if you're Olivia Rodrigo, who helped you when you were, just coming up. She didn't, just happen. She was, part of the machine. If you start to look at, if you look at The Weeknd was around for 6 or 7 years before he had his first big hit. So I think do I think it changed? Yes. I mean, I just don't think there's as many artist, there's so many other things to do besides music that your attention span is in different places. So
right, and obviously a concert today, it's great, but it's also a shame that everyone's standing or sitting with their phone, right, at a massive scale.
This replaced your attention span.
But there's something special about a moment in time experience that's not captured, and you have to draw on it from your memory. Whereas today, the actual, it may do a discredit or disservice to your memory of that concert.
I promised myself that, when we got on, I wouldn't digress, because look, I'm lucky enough. I saw Jimi Hendrix on New Year's Eve. You know what I'm saying? I saw Led Zeppelin the first time they came to the Fillmore East. I saw the Who and the Rolling Stones as a fan. Of course, I had no choice but to. I loved music, and then it was like, I'm doing this. This is what I'm going to do. And so, but it's different now, right? I mean, you go to Radio City or you go to Madison Square Garden now, it's a completely different experience than what those venues and what that was then, right? Mm-hmm. But that's great. I mean, I think it's great. But I think what I was spinning towards is, so now talent and brands, right? Audience engagement, data. Right. I mean, look, they're selling NFTs as tickets, the evolution of these relationships. So then I realized, let's build relationships with the brands also and the talent. So now we're building an ecosystem that's, mutually beneficial to both, which is what you always want. And then we've evolved to where you see it. The talent are brands, right? So all of that you need to understand. And I think that's part of the relationship building. Like, if you don't understand that you need to build a brand relationship with like that's what AEG or Live Nation or anyone who's smart is doing. They're bringing those relationships together with their agents and managers. So,
yeah.
But
Chip, sorry to cut you, but so if I was ever introducing you to someone to talk about your experiential or entertainment pedigree, I like to reference, because it's like, to me, it's one of the most amazing production accomplishments that I could speak to, is your work on the Victoria's Secret fashion show.
That's right. That's right. And so, fast forward to 2000, I also managed talent on the journey of, after I left the concert business, I got into the corporate entertainment business with PepsiCo, Payne Weber, Shearson Lehman, on and on and on, of talent, of brands that wanted talent at their meetings, at their events, and blah, blah. But evolving that to managing Sugar Ray, selling 12 million albums in the ecosystem of big labels. So I'd already been around all of that stuff, and then having metal bands that made money, understanding that, taking a band and turning them into, look at Mark McGrath, 29 years later, the guy, can play, every festival that he wants to, because he's, got a great personality, knows how to, deal with the brands and folks around it in his genre. I think Condé Nast became a client through Vogue and GQ. And one of the visionary publishers, Richard Beckman, came to me and wanted to say, I want to do, he's an English guy, the GQ Men of the Year. And so I said, at Radio City, how much will that cost? 200,000 or 300,000? I was like, let's say 2 million or 3 million, but it's a fucking great idea. So we did the first GQ Men of the Year, right? In London, they had done one, but it was, not an extravaganza. And we did it with big presenters and talent. This gentleman then, we did it for 2 years, and he went off to run Vogue, did the Vogue Fashion Awards with them. But then he ran Condé Nast, and we created Fashion Rocks, the intersection of music and fashion. And this leads right to Victoria's Secret. So 2005, 2004, I started producing for Richard Beckman at Condé Nast across all their big magazines, Vogue, Cosmo, all of that. Utilizing the ad pages as leverage for talent back then, because they were still selling albums and streaming was new. We got Beyonce and Duran Duran and Rihanna and every big star for 5 years with models on stage, like, Duran Duran, girls on film and blah, blah. So it was very fortuitous in 2009 that Monica Mitro, one of the executive producers of the show, reached out to me. And that's what I did. I went to work and really brought, you saw it, firsthand, the music to Victoria's Secret, because my vision was it was great. They were an infomercial, though. That was a brand who could really spend the money. So let's make it an entertainment special. And we did. I mean, it was Colossus. Really was.
What were the numbers, like the peak numbers on viewership for that, for the Victoria's Secret fashion?
And they were really crossing in the right way. So on CBS, they'd have 12 or 14 million, and then they'd have around the world, 1 billion impressions, because all you wanted to do, look, I'd have The Weeknd, Rihanna, Katy Perry, Nicki Minaj, Justin Bieber, Kanye, Jay-Z. I mean, go down the list, everyone. And on the runway, The Weeknd with, Taylor Swift twice, Lady Gaga. So, Ed Sheeran, Hozier. Right. So it became this great cross-section. I feel the brand, and I've said this and everyone knows it, but the brand lost sight as a brand. Look, I'm in show business. I don't sell bras, but we knew, and we were saying to them, this is America, the women are changing. And I think, maybe you change your thing a little bit, but for us, it culminated for me 2017. I produced the show at the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai. And again, their brand in Asia is gigantic. It was a great platform. Their ROI was directly related to the show. It was one of a kind. No other brand could spend that kind of money to do such a spectacularly beautiful show. We did the Grand Palais and places like that, yeah. Great town.
It's amazing stuff. I still remember, I think even before I knew you, I kind of remember the Justin Bieber acoustic performance, playing the guitar on stage, or am I wrong on that? Is that possible?
Yeah.
I relate better to the slower music than the fast stuff.
Oh, we had so much fun doing that show too. Because it was really a great creative group of people that made that happen. And Ed Razik, who was the CMO, really had a fantastic vision of what it should be. So,
but look, even when you describe the intersection of fashion and music, right, in all these new startups and companies, it's all about the mashups and the intersections today, right? How do you cross over industries and companies?
Very good. Because right now, let's look at Triller. Let's look at Twitch. Let's look at these platforms that are now doing these shows. CBS or NBC or cable or whoever, they do award shows and that's it. They don't do any other music really, right? So really, they don't do fashion. Today, the crossroads are music, fashion, art. Art is a gigantic piece because it's become so accessible and in the conversation because of NFTs. Crypto and the conversation around crypto, while it's in its infancy and it feels like a hype, it's real. It's not going away. So you need to deal with, what the blockchain is and all of that. Now, you may say, how does that come into a brand relationship? We always think about technology now around what's engagement, right? And how do you really get your fan? So that, like right now, we're working on a music and fashion culinary piece around it all, so that it's kind of all of the senses. NFTs are a gigantic part of it. Okay, and what the part of the NFT, which is a bad word now, NFT, because people don't quite understand it, think it's a hype. Just say digital collectible. The digital collectible, the utility allows you to the restaurant, allows you into Gucci, allows you into the store. And I say, what are we doing right now? We were at the American Dream. Anyone look it up? It's the largest mall in America. It was just built by this amazing family in New Jersey, but it's spectacular. But their interactivity with their customers and what we're bringing, something called Art Chase there, QR code based, kind of scavenger hunt with big street artists that we represent and work with, right? We're doing one in a crypto NFT museum. My point is, I think we're working with brands like Hasbro. We're working with some classic brands and re-engineering and reimagining who they are today, along with who they've been and who they're going to continue. So, when you ask, I've done so many different things. 15 years ago, they'd call you up and say, can you stage a Gucci fashion show? Now they want to be inside a video game. Right? No, but I mean it. It's true.
Right. No, it's real.
Right now,
I'm laughing with you. I'm laughing.
Right now, we're in a conversation with a big fashion brand about Free Fire, a game from Southeast Asia that's the most downloaded mobile game in the world. I always say, this is about keeping your ears open, but it goes back to the beginning. It's got to be accountable. Right now, we're closing on a totally digital product, contesting and different things, all in the digital space for a very big brand, fragrance. But it's all about, okay, you can spend out of your budget. Here's your silos. And these are the measurable deliverables against these silos too. It's not just let's throw it against the wall anymore. So, right. I mean, today, John, because of your business and your background, that, engaging your customer is the ultimate play. And so that's all I want to do in culture marketing and entertainment marketing. And, if you want me to produce your event as part of all of that, let's make sure it has a reason. I mean, look, if you have a lot of money and you want to, have a private party in your backyard for the weekend, you can call me also. I'll do that. But if it's a business related brand where you're trying to, grab customers, audience.
Right. Yeah. And even the digital collectible, I agree with you. That's the way that I describe NFTs to the average person. And I'm by no means an expert yet.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just the digital collectible, it's also the liquidity, right? There's a marketplace for that utility, as opposed to just the experience ending there and having a video capture, as you feel, if it's done right, that there's more longevity. And it's not just, it's experiential as long as you want it to be, with a kind of gambling gamification to say where it's going, making a bet and trusting your vision or instincts. And then being able to monetize it, if both in dollars or crypto or some other format, the experience itself, right?
I think the big thing that I'm seeing is the community around it. So, you're part of a club, and now you have these things that you're able to get, first in line for the concert. If it's a music NFT, a one-on-one with this, there's got to be some type of, as they call them, utilities, but deliverable there. I think for fashion brands, and to re-envision, and some of the discussions we had around the space in the Oculus, in the past, to continue to re-envision what retail needs to be, you need to engage people. And I think the digital collectible NFT and the utilities around it can lead you to H&M and the capsule collection between them and Nike. And you get, instead of the sneaker costing you $220, it's $150, and sends you over to Prada. And you can, if you're in the luxury market, and gives you X. So I think you go into Saks in every mall, it's a 10% off sign when you walk in. So,
what I've gotten into, which we didn't talk about with my son, is watching the sports card pack openings. The live shows in retail. And what I realized, I like the art sometimes of watching someone else pull an insert card or some special expensive thing.
Yeah.
What also is overwhelming, Chip, is the amount of of the inserts in the collectibles world, all the specialty, and trying to
Oh,
like understand it all. And where do you go to figure out what's the pricing, what's the marketplace,
it's
what is
crazy.
this card? It's really, it's in a good way, it's out of hand, but like that's one area that I think they have a long way to go. Is
Yeah.
really
Well,
tightening up the marketplace so you understand what it is you just received or that
yeah.
you're
But
purchasing.
it's an insider's game. Like, like the card collectible game is a very much an insider's game, right? And I think it's built into that. So if you're, like you just said, if you're not really on it, you don't understand it. Same with the NFT. I see Tristan Eaton today, who had very good NFT sales. He's an artist, right? So he had a very, very strong NFT sale, and 5,000 pieces. They've gone up. Now he has people burning the NFT, and they get the real piece, but it limits the market for the rest that are out there. So it makes them more valuable. It's like, so obviously I know people in the space and have worked with people in the space. So Mr. Caves being one of them, an artist I managed in the world of Brooklyn, just had a very successful NFT drop with the MOOCs on Art Blocks and Doodle Labs, two very, respected, and then in the secondary market on OpenSea. And so, his take on it is, as you think it would be. They're creating the market. So you kind of need to be inside the game, not after the market. And so, I'm
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, and
caught.
that's why having the relationships and knowing how to network and relate to people and, talking up and talking down, having relationships up and down the spectrum, right? Serves
Yes.
itself well to get into those circles, so to say.
And relationships with folks like yourself and the new agency and guys who are in the space. I mean, I just got off with a group in Miami because it's Crypto Central and NFT Central down there, and I learn a lot. I really do. Right now, there's such a big movement around fractal art. Owning pieces of this, and again,
I had, between NFTs, crypto, Metaverse, Web3, yeah, you just have to know. If you know a little bit, you're going to know more than the average person that's out there. And
yeah,
it's all about kind of listening, learning, being a part of it, asking questions. I don't think you're going to meet that many people that are going to know everything. And things
yeah.
are changing so fast. So almost like pick your lanes or spots, know those better than others, and then wrap around it with other stuff that you kind of could come up with, right?
And someone said, fairly astute advertising people are saying to me, well, what they're building in the metaverse now is not going to be the same in 5 years. I go, yeah, but if the gatekeepers now are still the gatekeepers, then look at, and that you can't really. Everyone wants to take Meta, Facebook, and all these things and say, oh, they're dead, they're over. The new thing is Discord. Well, they're still here. So I'm not smart enough to know what the future is. So I'm just trying to
Somebody this morning was talking about real estate metaverse stuff. And obviously, the Snoop house, I think, got a lot of attention, right?
Right.
So we were joking that they should have digital drones dropping, cannabis off in his backyard or something. And we didn't touch on it, but the cannabis industry is something that you've been monitoring or.
Yeah, I mean, we've been involved
opportunities
in the legal business there since Canada legalized cannabis, and then got involved raising money on public companies. And like a lot of people in the cannabis industry, took a very bumpy ride. But really, my focus was New York. And since last March 31st, when they passed the MRTA for possession and whatnot, and consumption, and now they're moving towards the regulations.
It sounds like I read an article, right? New Jersey is getting closer,
and I think
New York will be under pressure to follow.
Well, the regulations in New York will come soon, and then the applications. But we still believe, and we're focused in the delivery space and the lifestyle space, right? You have to have something to do, and I own bars, so you want people to have entertainment and have fun, and we believe like in the fresh direct culture and the delivery culture of New York. we all going to just want our weed delivered and our gummies delivered and, whatever it be. So,
Yeah. Chip, on one central theme in my life, and particularly on this podcast or videocast series, is business development.
yeah.
And you touched on relationships, but if you had to kind of look back at your business career or personal journey and say, what are one or two things that you would define as business development and tactics or maneuvers you made that would sharing them with others would ultimately help them?
Yeah,
Do any come to mind?
I hear what you're saying. So I think it's two ways. I think business development starts with believing in and knowing your skill set. So by that I mean, if I'm going after, want to develop a project, a relationship, it's got to be in a discipline that I can shine and I have ultimate confidence in, because then I can sell myself, because ultimately you're selling yourself. I think the difference with me and a lot of people is, and I mean, it's the good and bad. It allowed me to maneuver easily and nimbly. I never went into a big company. I've always been inside my own business, working for big companies. So even when I went to work for Ron back in the 80s, Delster in the concert business, I had my production company. I mean, I worked for him. I was an employee of Ron Delster Entertainment. That's what my check said. But at the end of the day, I was my own person. I built my teams. So I'm a team builder. So I do feel like my number one, the biggest piece is know what I'm trying to biz dev and be good at it. So for me, I would just identify potential clients, and perfect example is to build from within. I had GQ as a client and I was doing, kind of activations around the magazine. We would do events. And in just discussions, we spitballed and came up with the GQ Man of the Year, because I had a good, my client was a visionary. And magazines at that time needed to continue to reinvent, and Richard Beckman was a futurist. So, but I'm also that guy that could say, okay, here's the budget. Let me put the practical side of this together, and this is how we can do this. So I could always deliver that side. So I feel like, build from within is really smart. Always look within your client base to see what you can develop within them. And I think right now is a very, very big opportunity for that.
Right.
Make sure you understand the new digital universe, but also know where it works and what doesn't work, right? Sending 10 million emails does not work. It doesn't matter, but some people still think it does, so there's some that are catching up.
I just to share one that I've been kind of explaining to people lately is optimism and positivity, right? If you're talking about developing something or growing, of course you have to be realistic.
Yes.
But I think what resonates with other is optimism, like being a full person, being resourceful, being relentless, figuring it out. To be a defeatist or glass half empty is a killer in any business development situation.
Oh, that's really a good one too. I agree with you. I mean, I always say, you have to have a little P.T. Barnum in you when you're like taking some of the, the practical is important, but there comes the magic, that you need to like add in. Look, I think you can see in the crypto. Have you gone to any of these NFT weeks or crypto parties? They've evolved over the last 2 years, especially the ones that just happened in Miami. Realize that, okay, what are we getting out of this other than if it's a networking and in a social setting? Just be clear about what you're doing, right? And they're getting better. They were terrible. Now they're getting better, right? So I think the optimism is what got them here, right? I think even in just general, in the whole movement and the belief system. So I think the other thing about BizDev is being, for me anyway, not being afraid to take a speculative risk on certain opportunities. So, and I know you do it too. So, and it paid off for me today at a project I'm doing at the Plaza. But, the same group, I helped them do a charity thing gratis. I saw that they weren't going to be able to spend any money. And, it's a couple of days of my involvement, but more importantly, it paid off in an event. So I think sometimes you have to gauge that, and experience gives you that. But there's certain clients that you realize, I'm doing another one in sports, and they're just coming to the party now. After 4 months, I watched what they had to do. And, so I think there's some of that for me in the biz dev side that leads to some really good long-term clients, and has,
And Chip, I was, funny enough, I think when we originally met 10 plus years ago, we were a real estate company trying to do activations in underutilized space, which at that time was a restaurant in our building, where we were doing community. We got introduced to you. We wanted to do a music event, and we produced a really cool acoustical type performance in a 20th and Park restaurant. With that being said, once we saw what it was like to work together, because we don't talk about this too much, we at that time owned an office building in Times Square, and it was a legendary, the Brill building.
That's right.
Legendary in the music industry, ironically, with your background and talked about music before. And we said, Google is making this huge push with a new social media platform, Google Plus. We got connected to their top Google Plus music star, again, the musical background. We own this building that was known for music. We go to the recording studio.
That's right.
You producing it, but me being the facilitator to make sure that no one chopped our head off.
That's right.
For kind of having this vision, we put on a live Google Hangout concert.
A Google Hangout concert over 10 years ago or 10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And we invited people. So there was a
real
life element. We streamed it on Google, and we came up short to push it. We tried pushing it on the Clear Channel billboards in Times Square. Yeah. So if and when you talk about things you did 20 years, 30 years, like for me, that only came together because I had you in my corner and the team, and being able to pull that off, and the technology worked. Exactly.
Because that was interesting, Jonathan. That's a very new technology. It was a very new technology, the Google Hangout. So, yeah,
that was a fun one. That was for the books. So, Chip, we're gonna wrap up here, but
cool, dude.
I don't think this is the end of Fish and Chip. This is.
I like Fish and Chip, and I think we could get a couple of other interesting guests. I think one of the big things in 420 is coming up. I have, I parse in my day different things, right? So the cannabis industry takes up 25% of my day, especially legalization in New York and everything that's happening around it, and all of the relationships I have raising money and blah, blah, blah. But I think for us, the nightlife business current nightlife business is a whole nother subject we can delve into. And then the cruise business. We've got the Jewel. We're doing multiple cruises over the summer on the Jewel with Good Stuff Entertainment. Myself and Michael Ginsberg, who I own the Chelsea Music Hall with, and Chelsea Music Hall folks, 15th and 9th, one of the great clubs in New York. So we could get into that. All right. All right.
I've got Little Fish here trying to creep into this virtual background.
I see Little Fish. Little Fish.
Little Fish and Little Chip we could do one day.
There we go. Yeah, Little Fish. Yeah.
Right? Fish and Dip.
Fish and Dip.
Chip and Dip. Yeah.
Chip, all right, brother.
Man. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you, dude.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Be good. See you guys.